Yeah, I'll teach how to design sci-fi slash the fantasy building using the realistic elements such as the real world, like the architecture stuff, like Gothic, Art Nouveau, like Art Deco, Gaudi, like all the way to like the Romanesque kind of combination of these things, and how you can actually apply this to come up with like the basic, the like really like just unique the building designs. Right. Actually, I went to like two trips in the last 2 years. One was like most recent one was the Kyoto. Obviously Kyoto is like beautiful. So they have like this amazing architecture. The traditional Japanese. Especially when I went to like the Ninanjaka and Sanenjaka, there's one of the temples, the tower, the way they built it was really beautiful. So I think that was one, and the other one was like almost 2 years ago. I went to Paris. So yeah, Paris you can experience like all different kinds of like architecture, right? From Gothic architecture, like a Notre Dame, right, all the way to it's just yeah. So I can really pinpoint like just one architecture that really goes shock me. It was more like a overall like the visual experience in Paris, especially like I think actually rather than like just one building, what was most impressed me in Paris was like their residential houses,
Like every day.
like everyday houses.
Yeah.
The way they built the rooftops, they have like that big chimney, right? That like 4 or 5 different chimneys actually embedded into this one, like the big, like the square structure. It was a very interesting. That's like really charming about the Paris. That's a combination of all that, like that creates like this unique, the characteristics of the Paris. That was what's really
So you like world
beautiful.
building?
Yeah, sure. I was part of the world building team at Riot. So yeah, of course I enjoy world
I
building.
think that's a really great point. Instead of just when you visit different country or city, instead of focusing on the major landmark, maybe we just have to see like day-to-day scenery to understand
Yeah.
the culture,
Right.
understand the vibe. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I think actually this answers why the Miyazaki is so great. So when I think of the architecture, right, there's so many. When you actually do the characters and the vehicles, there's so many things, right? But when you talk about the architecture, it's kind of like it's hard to answer that, right? But I think definitely like most of the Miyazaki films is a very like memorable, especially like the Howl's Moving Castle, right? So it was shocking because originally written by Diana Jones, right? The English the writer, but the way that Miyazaki interpreted, the visually, it's not really even a vehicle. Also, it's not like the building. So it's between the vehicle and in the buildings, right? So I think it was just a collaboration of like all the architectural, the exploration that Miyazaki, actually like gave us like in the last decade. It was just yeah, had like the cannon fodder, had like some creature characteristics, like in the European style, like just it had like everything. So if I have to pick one, it's a Howl's Moving Castle. Yeah.
Nice. I really like the contrast between the nature,
Yeah.
The floating big
Right.
castle, and yeah, it was just really amazing.
Yeah. So I think it's really easy for us to think that like when we say it's a building, we kind of separate that as from the characters. But I think there's really good building design also is something the building that has a lot of personality in the characters. So almost like treat them as a character. It's not just this is not like kind of lifeless, the soulless, like just kind of the stiff building. So I think that's one of the major key to design like really successful buildings. Yeah. I think that any level of the students can actually take this class, but at least like it'll be great if the students can take the basic perspective class, so at least understand basic the 1 point perspective, 2 point, like 3 point perspective, and also to apply the perspective. So you should be able to draw the cube, sphere, and then like cones in the right perspective. So as long as like you understand like the basics, and you'll be able to take this class.
You use the basic perspective and you say 1, 2, 3 point perspective.
I think that's a basic perspective. maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, I think that's a basic. When you when we talk about the perspective, you should know at least how to handle like 1 point, 2 point, 3 point perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
And fisheye, cone of vision, and everything.
Cone of vision, well, sure. Wow, there's so many places, but yeah, I went to Europe. Besides that, like the Paris trip 2 years ago, I went to Europe almost like 15 years ago. But since that was your first time, so you only try to go to like the most famous landmarks, right? But what I want to do is like I want to go to like a countryside of the Paris. I mean the France countryside of like different the countries like such as like Mont Saint Michel. That's one of the castle that was built through the 1200 years. So if you look at the whole architecture, you see the Romanesque and the Gothic existing at the same time, right? So and then it's also one of the inspirational like the location that Miyazaki used to create his Laputa, the castle in the sky. So yeah, I think that's definitely one of my it's a bucket list. And that's another place is interestingly like it's all in France. This place is called it's like a Rocamadour. Rocamadour is a French, but yeah, if you Google it, like it'll show it. So, but it actually looks like a fantasy world. Like they built this like a huge like the castle structure, the hanging on the side of the wall, like the canyon. Yeah, so it's amazing. It's in the valley, and there's like a lake in between. Actually, the scene just looks like some kind of like a Miyazaki film, or like the fantasy world. So those two places like it's definitely like a landmarks I want to visit.
After the travel restriction is lifted, maybe you will take a break.
Oh, so I'll just take a week before that. So yeah, whenever it's a chance, yeah. Today, for this class, mostly I'll use the traditional medium, mainly the pentel brush pen. But yeah, so mostly like the traditional the mediums like such as like the high-tech pens or like the brush pens, like even copy markers, well, hopefully, but mainly it's gonna be the brush pen.
Okay, so no pencil and eraser.
Maybe pencil like when you lay in, yeah. So it's I'm not restricting any traditional medium. Of course, there's a certain the tools that I suggest to the students, but there's some better like traditional medium they want to use, and I'm not preventing from using it. Okay, so this lecture, I think I kind of hinted a little bit in the beginning, but I taught this method like just from last term at Kazan Art. And then the funny thing was, yeah, of course, like I kind of use this method as well to the students, but what made a huge difference of last term was because I was going through step by step to this, and then like I was giving the lecture to the students. So I see the huge jump in their the skill level. So I was just surprised. Like so slower I was going, actually they ended up, getting their portfolio done faster. So I want to apply like this method, and then so basically like just the major the focus on this method is like you're hybriding like two different elements. One is you're using like the architecture stuff like Art Deco, like Art Nouveau, like Gothic, medieval, like so whatever you call it, like yeah, like so yeah, you're hybriding those two elements into real world stuff and the other stuff. I think there's a chance you can create like just more unique and unconventional design of the buildings. So yep.
Great, we're super excited.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you.